thanks. I haven't really done anything different.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome along to another Blether. We have Dave, fastest finger on the hellos. Good evening, Dave. Hopefully you're well. Watching on YouTube. So whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, good evening and welcome along. Cracking guest tonight, who we are going to learn a lot about a recent release and maybe some things coming up in the future as well. Yeah, Kat, how are you?
I am good. It is. I've just realised I stuck that in my hair. I know it's a habit, and I thought, no, I can't do that on screen. I just realised. School holidays, on annual leave, so yeah, it's busy, but it's good. Became the mother of a 16-year-old teenager the other day, so feeling very old, but all good. Wow.
That's gone by so quick. You don't look old enough to have a 16-year-old son. I'll say it on behalf of everyone watching at home.
Exact right response. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Guys, hopefully you're all safe and indoors, keeping out of the storm, and hopefully it'll boost our numbers a little bit as well, because you won't be out venturing, watching. I don't know what people do on a Thursday night. Go to the pub. You're not going to the pub in this weather. We actually closed our pub. We've got the Black Bull. We decided not to open tonight. Let's get our guest on.
There's no football this week to compete with either, I don't think, is there?
Yeah, Scotland have qualified. No worries, even though they got humped by France on Tuesday night, but hey, never mind. We're going to Germany. So on that note, let's bring our guest in, because we're not here to talk football and weather. I've completely forgotten how to do this. Add to stage. There we go. Hello, Blair. How are you?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Good. I had a total technological mind blank there.
I've had many of those today as well, so don't worry about that. So, you both well?
Very well, thank you.
We are surviving the storm so far.
Touch wood, slightly wind swept, but well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And how is it with you?
It's good. I mean, Glasgow is relatively calm just now. There's been the usual wet weather, but there's not really been much wind. I think it's more East Coast.
Yeah, we're saying kind of Dundee. They were evacuating Brecon.
Brecon, I know.
Yeah.
So, all the Aberdeenshire firefighters have been heading down to Brecon to evacuate folk. It's mad, isn't it?
It's quite scary, actually, the way that
it's just. I hope there's not too much
thankfully,
damage.
it's overnight. Hopefully, there's not much damage, and then we can try and get back to a bit more normality tomorrow as well. So, yeah, I know the new job has got me looking a little bit more on wind and weather. If you're then getting the boat, the ferry, or looking at the small Logan airplane as well, so I'm a little bit more switched on in terms of weather forecasts and all.
Do you know you're an islander when you start comparing which weather app you use? So, like, which weather are you using?
Yeah, and I now know different ferries to go, so which one's best, which one has a little bit more wind, what to look out for. So a little bit more seasoned in terms of that, thinking about that as well. So
you'll start setting your life around ferry timetables, trust me.
Definitely. What's the summer timetable? What's the winter timetable? What's the best place to go to? Driving to the ferry is probably quite a unique experience, where it's the only time the sat nav actually adds time on. Like, normally when you put the sat nav on to get to, like, whether it's going from Uig or whether it's going from Ullapool, you'll set yourself a time and be like, yep, you know where you're going. If you're going down, if you're driving down south or other parts of Scotland up to see yourselves or Aberdeen or Speyside, you know roughly the time it's going to take, and you probably shave a little bit off the. Yeah. No, driving to the ferry is the only time it just adds time on, and you're like, where's this time coming from? What's going on? Like, you then have the panic about getting onto the ferry and everything as well.
Yeah. I always used to have my clock set 10 minutes slow, because I used to live in an island, and it was just so that I always knew to get there on time. Just give myself that extra 10 minutes. Because see, if you miss a lunchtime ferry and you're stuck there for an hour while they're eating a sandwich, you're like, oh, for God's sake.
You've got island time though, so you can relax on island time and have a wee bit more.
Yeah.
That is true.
We've got Rick, who is just winding us up. A very sunny and dry California he's watching from. 11 o'clock in the morning over there. So
not jealous at all in the slightest.
Send some sunshine over, Rick, please.
Exactly. I mean, we could throw that back at you and say we're just about to have a dram, Rick. So it's 11 o'clock in the morning. So you're probably not going to be pouring a dram. So we'll throw that back at you.
You never know. You never know.
It would be rude not to introduce. Now, are we saying this as the Hearach? Am I doing that right?
The Hearach, yeah, or the Hearach, just depends. It's potato, that kind of idea. It's just how you feel comfortable saying what it is as well. Yeah, so that is one of the best pronunciations I've heard of it. I've heard some out there ones as well. But yeah, we're that's part of the advertising and what we put out as well as getting customers and getting people from the distillery and getting people from Harris who are.
I've seen the video, yeah.
And then explain how to say it as well, which is quite good.
You're coming from guys who've got the geary right on our doorstep, so we know how a little bit about pronouncing misspelt words.
You've nearly upset Kat there at the start of the night. She was on it.
Do you know, I've heard every variation. Sometimes I think I've heard every variation. It was the folk that came in and there was their surname and they'd be pronounced, well, okay, you're not pronouncing it wrong if it's your surname, but yeah, and there's some unusual pronunciations out there. Just whatever. He's got a roll with it. It makes us unique.
You were close. You were closer than some of the Glengarry pronunciations that I've heard before as well.
I mean, at least it kind of looks like how you pronounced it, like Hearach. I mean, I guess
Glengarry. It's there, and as long as people can see it, and the person in the shop, in the retailer, behind the bar knows roughly what they're asking for, then that works.
Yeah.
I guess I could always say the Harris whiskey as well.
Or they could just point at it and say, just give me that.
I'll have one of those. It must be one of the trickiest bottles on the shelf, though. That is.
It is. I mean, it's, believe it or not, how they manage to keep it secret for the amount of time is just incredible. So,
did you see the bottle beforehand?
I saw the bottle maybe about 3 weeks before launch, and it's, believe it or not, that was designed at the very same time as the gin bottle. So the design and mold for that bottle is roughly 8 to 10 years old.
Wow.
And has been kept under wraps on PDF files out the road to be come out from that as well. And I mean, I've heard some comments around the bottle, but there's very limited people who don't like it. I think it really has stand out, something a little bit different, and hopefully has the same standout as the gin bottle does in lampshades and diffusers and like water bottles in certain places as well, which is quite good.
That would make a cracking lamp, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The little quirkiness that it has as well. So the parts of the bottle, the weave on the bottle is to look like Harris tweed. The label, the weave on that as well is to look like Harris tweed. There's a little thumbprint similar to what's on the bottle as well.
Just noticed that. I was going to say, I just noticed that just now. It's got the fingerprints on it. So on the bottle, I'm hearing that on the gin bottle that represents footprints in the sea, in the beach. Is that what that?
Yeah. So what we're looking at for both brands is a concept of two spirits, one purpose. So the purpose being the distillery. Do you guys know why the distillery was set up, or the backstory, or anything about it?
A little bit. Just that it was a community distillery.
So basically they were looking at the island of Harris. On the last census, I think it was 1,916 people that lived on Harris, and they were very conscious around people then having to potentially leave the island to take up careers or move, or people who really didn't want to leave home, so to speak. I mean, if for those of you that have been to Harris, the scenery is just out of this world. It's phenomenal. It's a lovely, lovely place. The people are so welcome. And I think they were very conscious around people then having to leave, move on to the mainland to get work. And that meant that they just never really returned to Harris. They then started families, moved, got married, moved away, and didn't come back. So they were very, very conscious about that. And it started with a gentleman called Burr, who then looked at what could we do that could then create a skilled workforce on the island that would encourage people to stay, and they could then grow their careers and start and progress through businesses as well. So in there, the distillery was then born from that. So there was an original 10 people who were called the Tarbert 10. The majority, if not all, are still with us. And basically they had the dream to then start this distillery. Our CFO, Ron, is actually from an island just off of Harris called Scalpay. So he was then approached he was at White Mackay at the time, would he then come on and look at it? And it was just by chance that it found out that Ron was from Scalpay as well. So he grew up in Scalpay, come back to Summers for childhood. So his mum was originally from Scalpay as well. So there's a really nice backstory there that they wanted to create something that really has the community in Hearach at heart. It really gives us a unique selling story that nobody else really has. And I think just now we probably employ 50 people on the island. That's over Hearach and Lewis as well. So a lot of our workforce come from Lewis, who then travelled down as well. So between the two islands, we probably look at a workforce of around 50. And there's a real mix. There's husbands and wives. There is husband, wife, and daughter. There is sisters. It's just a real nice. We call ourselves the social distillery, and it really does feel like that when you come. That it has that real family-friendly feel about it as well. So
it's such an important thing to do, though, because like island life is so dependent on young people staying, and that is dependent on employment. Because as soon as you lose young people, you lose the shop, then you lose the school, and then nobody wants to move on to the island. It becomes this repetitive cycle. So for a distillery to actively promote, jobs within the island is a fantastic thing.
I think so. And then the additional jobs that it then brings, if you look at distribution with Woodies from Stornoway and roundabout with the equipment that we use and the local tradesmen that we use and everything as well. So it really works out as it kind of help the community as well, which is good.
Mm-hmm. And people like yourself.
Correct. Some mainlanders sneak in as well, which is not too bad. But I think the real beauty of what they've created within the distillery is there's absolutely no divide between the mainland team and the island team. It's just one big team. I mean, people talked to me before I started about the Hebridean hospitality and how warm the people were, and like nothing could be further point on. It's everybody is so warm, so welcome. They're so delighted that you're then joining the company to then help the one cause of getting the brands out and selling. But it's just everybody just all mucks in together. I mean, the launch weekend, we were still helping out the night before, changing the shop round, making sure everything was set up. That was there as well. But I think everybody just mucks in, and I think it'd be so easy to have a real divide between the team on the mainland, the sales team on the mainland, and the people at the distillery as well.
Good stuff.
Mike looks proper zoned in on a question there. He's on it.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments. So we've got quite a few guys to say hello to. Said hello to Rick and Dave. We've got David Muir on. Good evening. We've got Willis, whose comment is in the packaging is pretty complicated as well. I'm not sure it's complicated, but complex maybe, I think.
It is. I mean, I'll address that question straight away. It can be. We hold our hands up that there has been some issues around damaged casing, and it's certainly something we're looking at for future releases. We've already started conversations of how we can make things better. And appreciate that there has been some frustrations around cases going out that have been damaged when they've arrived with people as well. But I think we've also been making sure that we send out replacement frames so that people have got it and it is pristine. We're looking at reinforcing this. We're looking at making things a little bit smaller. Even something as simple as the magnet on the back, we feel that to reach the time frames maybe wasn't left to dry for as long as what we want. So we're going to leave it now to dry for 3 days so the glue is completely set. So that will help going forward as well. So we appreciate there have been issues. We appreciate everybody's patience while we then send out replacement Z frames and everything they've got, and know how frustrating it can be as well. But I think looking at it with the amount went out, it's less than 1% in terms of what damages have been. So, but because of the sheer amount that went out, it does seem quite a high volume. So we do appreciate everybody's patience on that as well. So we are looking to make improvements. We
were quite lucky. We had, I mean, a lot of our guys, thankfully, were buying the bottles to drink. So when we did have experience a couple of damage, I think we had 4. But when they came to collect the bottles, we were saying, "Are you going to be opening it? Do you mind us if we damage?" And most of the guys were like, "No, it's all right." I think there was one person said, "No, we'd like to get a intact bottle."
We haven't had many that have smashed. So picking up the bottle, looking at the strength of the glass and what we have, then that is the main thing, that it's not arriving and there's absolutely no liquid for somebody to drink as well.
Kat, do you have the box handy? I know you've got your bottle there. Rick was asking if about the packaging. He was asking if there was. We've got Phil Dixon already looking to make a lamp from the empty bottle.
Yeah. Oh no, you've well done. You've got the box quicker than I do. Mine's all folded out on the floor. In terms of sustainability, obviously, like less is more. It's a good thing. You know, we've got less to recycle, I guess. I mean, I do like the box.
The box was designed as well. If you look at you want to really go back into the packaging. We're all about like having a story and having everything on it as well. So if you run your hands over the front of the box, you'll feel slight indents. That is to replicate the rock formations around Hearach as well. So
I was reading about this. It's like the oldest rocks in the world. It's mental.
It's the oldest rocks with the purest water that God knows how they built the roads and managed to knock through some of the rocks there, because it is proper hard stuff. But everything this has a little touch back to the island. So whereas Hearach gin is about the sea and the sea kelp and the ocean, this is about the landscape and the kind of roughness and the ruggedness of the island as well. So it really gives you two different points to come at with the liquids as well.
I love the little bit.
As you open it up, there is nice stories in there that tells you a little different parts of it. If you then want to read it about the distillery and what we've got, and just various different things, points of difference as well, which is quite.
There was 8 batches. But there was also 8 different boxes as well. But the boxes weren't directly related to the batch, was it? The box could have been, I guess they were randomized, were they?
Yeah, I believe they were randomized. I think it was, but randomized. But everybody on the box is a local person. We've called them the box stars that are there. Some of them, who do I have on it? Who do I have on my box?
So every box has got like a different person on it. So it's like the Mr. Menu. You collect them all.
There's 8 different. There's like, I think there's 8. I mean, I could be wrong here. Somebody might shout me down here that I'm wrong, but I believe there's 8 different bottle designs with pictures on the back. So the front is the same, but on the back there is different pictures of people, images from people from Hearach, who some are involved in the distillery, some work in the distillery, some are generally Hearachs from Hearach that have been included in it, real to give that real point of difference and really emphasizes community feel as well.
I love that, like, it's, you know, you have a tasting note, you've got kind of local people to talk about like what the whiskey reminds them of, and then if you put in the code on the top of your cork, you can like get right down to like nitty-gritty details of what warehouse it was matured in, like type of yeast that was used, and then you've got a storyteller that talks about what happened on the island during the day of distillation, which I love, because it was talking about lambing, and it was talking about like silage. I love it. It's like everything's like very much about the island.
I mean, what they really want to do, and again, it goes back to why the distillery was there, is not everybody can be in Hearach. Not everybody has been to Hearach, but they want to have a connection to the island every time you buy one of our products. So whether it is the Hearach, whether it is the Isle of Hearach gin, when you're enjoying a product, buying it from yourselves at the shop, or whether you're sitting enjoying it in a pub or wherever you've bought it from, that you then have that connection to the island. You can understand that little bit more about the island, but the information that you've got that really connects you to the brand that you're drinking, which I think is quite a unique point of difference from other brands as well, which is good.
Awesome.
It kind of reminds me of a little bit, because I may not have mentioned anybody, but I met Dave Broom the other day. So he writes just throw that in there. But he writes about how whiskey is like more than just the liquid. It's about the people that make it in the place. And that's kind of like the brand message that Hearach has got. You know, the people are very much part of the liquid, and liquid is very much part of the island. It's like that. It's just a really pretty brand story. A really nice brand story. Very different.
If you come in the distillery, the first thing you're met with is a coal fire that's there and seats around the coal fire. And there's a cafe off to the right-hand side where you can get coffee, but you can get a gin and tonic, you can buy a dram, and you're really encouraged that even if you're not doing a tour, to come in and have a drink and enjoy the warmth and speak to people when you're in as well, which is really nice. And we're also quite unique
to have a drink. What's in your glass tonight, Blair?
I have some water, and I also have some Hearach as well. So we're there. I thought I'd keep myself lubricated on the first.
On brand. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's we'll have a look at some people who are at home. I'm loving a lot of the comments from the guys on Facebook and YouTube with open bottles. Peter Hunt is saying his box has long been in the recycling bin. He opened it as soon as he got it, which is also it's a bit of a shame to the recycling bin with the amount of effort.
Right. I mean, perfect diffuser or a lamp or water bottle for future bottles. So you're sorted.
Yeah. Juliet Buchan, good evening, Juliet. The first bottle of the Hearach batch 1 has been emptied against the grain in Elgin. So if you're up in Elgin, guys, you better get there quick because it seems like it's flying out the door. Awesome. Whisky Mastery, who's watching on YouTube, he's saying thanks for arranging a replacement frame for his bottle. You sorted him out there, Blair.
Yeah, so I think, again, that's just what we want to do, is make sure that everybody had the product that they then expected to get as well. So more than happy to do that.
We've got Willis who's going to be doing the Speyside Marathon next weekend. Good luck, Willis. I hope the weather's better than it is this weekend.
Well, as long as if the wind is behind his back, if wind is pushing him on, it might give him a helping hand as well.
If it's bad, he's
running a marathon through Speyside.
Yeah. Have you never heard the dramathon?
No.
It's a half marathon. It's a half. He's taking it easy.
Oh, I did, because when the Glenfiddich is closed because of it, isn't it, on Saturday?
I think so, yeah.
I saw that, actually. Oh, wow, good luck.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I saw that Connell from Ardnamurchan, he's in a bit of training for it. I think he's doing
it.
Yeah.
So no, that sounds good. And good luck, Willis. I hope all goes well next weekend. Callum Renton, the island and the distillery are a must visit for whiskey fans. Take note, Kat. The tour is amazing. It starts with a dram. The way I
always start my tours with a dram. I just don't let other people drink it.
You don't give it to the customers, yeah.
I will take that.
It's nice now that we can actually have the Hearach involved. I mean, there was times where we had some new make spirit. You had the gin in there, and for a while, not that it's similar in style, but if you think of Island peat, not Isla peat, but like Northern Ireland peats, we used to let people try a little bit of Highland Park on our tour as well, so that you then roughly had the idea where it was similar, that the peatiness is more of a heather peat than the really kind of tree peat that you get that is synonymous with Isla as well. So we gave Highland Park on the tours to say this is something that might be quite similar in style to what we have coming up. But it's really nice now that we can put our own whiskey in there and let people sample as well.
What was the decision behind the spirit character? Was it something you just kind of the production team let evolve, or was it a specific, we want a sort of Highland style dram? Or
I think they just looked at and had so many different casks and so many different cask types. They also had really three consultants who were whiskey like institutional in the whiskey industry, who then come on and helped them and then discussed it and looked at what you wanted to do or what are you want to achieve from this as well. So I think there's been multiple different recipes. I think that what we have now is actually roughly recipe 19 of what they decided on, with the different mixes of bourbon with sherry that they put through as well. So what is in this product is 85% first fill bourbon, 11% Oloroso, and 4% Fino, which I think really just marries everything together and gives you a very rounded, easy to drink dram.
It certainly is.
It is. The Fino is like quite a bit more unusual, isn't it? Bourbon Oloroso.
It is quite unusual, and we had a tasting session before the launch so that we knew what we were talking about. Well, hopefully we know what we're talking about. But the Fino for me was something that was very interesting. I have tried Fino sherry on its own, like not in like before it had been matured in any whiskey. So tried that. Oloroso is something I've always enjoyed, but it was the Fino for me that was a real surprise. Yeah. And the sweetness that you had from it, which really just marries everything together and just really helps as well. It gives us, I suppose, a point of difference that it's not used in a lot of different whiskies as well. So, yes, everybody knows about Pedro Jimenez, know about Oloroso. There's a lot of Amontillado coming through just now as well. But Fino's not massively used because of where it sits, maybe on the scale of colour and taste that it's got. But it really helped in the marrying of the brands of the spirit as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a dry sherry. I think when a lot of people think of sherry, they think of that treacly or the PX, that really sweet, big chocolate and dark fruit notes. Fino's kind of the other end of the scale, isn't it? It's like a dry white wine almost, where you're getting salty character, a bit nutty, that kind of dryness coming through. And I think it works exceptionally well. Most of the Finos I've had have been from Island or lightly peated drams. And it works so well with that.
Definitely interacts with the peat as well. And just now that the peat we're using, because same as Orkney, Shetland, there's not many trees on Lewis and Harris, so that really helps that you've then got heather in there. It's a sweeter peat, so then that ties in perfectly with the sherry notes and the sweetness from the first fill bourbon as well, to give you that real full, rounded, well-bodied spirit as well.
It definitely works.
And you're nosing that there, Mike. For me, every time I nose it, I get something a little bit different. Something on the taste, I get a little bit different as well. Yes, there's overarching like nuttiness. For me, I get a real marzipan when you first smell it as well. But
there's a little bit of kind of marshmallow in there. There's a lovely sweet note to it, and a fruitiness comes through as well. I would agree. Every time, and this is about the third time I've poured a dram of it.
What, today or just in general?
Just in general. In general. Yeah, we took a bottle up for the pub as well. So if you're wanting a dram in Inverurie, guys, it is behind the bar in the Black Bull. But we're closed tonight because of the storm. So come in the weekend. We'll be happy to give you a dram. Greetings to Hamish. He's watching from Inverness. So hello to you. Question for Blair. We've got Whisky Mastery on YouTube. When will we be able to expect the first single cask release?
Good question. I mean, we're looking at we're looking at different things for next year. There will be limited editions out there. Single cask is certainly something that we're looking at. We're looking at whether we then want to have something that is distillery only that you can buy, or looking at what we've got. So there's a point of difference when you come to the distillery as well. But there's going to be additional batches launched next year. We are looking at 100% Oloroso matured. That'll be out at some point next year, which will be very interesting. And then I think in future we'll look at 100% bourbon matured as well. So there will be limited editions coming out each year. Single cask is we'll see what we're looking at potential cask strength and see what we have as well. So there's lots of different possibilities. I know that doesn't directly answer the question, but there is quite a politician's answer that come through there, but it's certainly there is plans in place, but there's just no definitive timeline as to what we're actually doing it. We are looking at keeping some stock back so that we then are able to bring out age ranges for milestones for the distillery, etc. as well. So there's lots of different things happening. There's been a lot of forward planning, which is nice to look at. So it's not been the case of, right, let's get everything that we have into bottles. So we look at it, and things have changed if we've gone round. So initially, the plan was to use 3 different distilleries, so Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, and Woodford Reserve. But on the first releases that you have and the second release, we're only using Heaven Hill and Buffalo Trace because we just felt that the Woodford Reserve liquid or matured liquid just wasn't where we wanted it to be. So we're probably looking to introduce that from 2025 as well. So again, we're looking at to produce the best possible liquid that we can over time as well, that people can enjoy and hopefully have been enjoying as well.
Mm-hmm.
So have you got some interesting casks sitting in the warehouse that you're not allowed to tell us about, but could tell us that there may be interesting casks?
There is, there's some rye casks that we've looked at. There's multiple different casks that we're looking at, not for finishing things off, but just looking at different casks, what we have from different bourbon casks, different types of casks as well. We have probably, I know everybody will say this, but we have the most scenic cask warehouses I think I've ever seen. So outside of Tarbert in a place called Ardhassig, which is right on the front of if you get a chance, Google it in terms of where our casks are, but they sit bang on the sea, right next to it, and probably the most picturesque place that you could be as well. So it is quite a wonderful place down there as well. Very interesting when it's windy and wet, but no, it just adds a little bit of extra character as well.
Just adds to the character of the whole whiskey, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I think that the product will always be made on Harris. It will always be bottled on Harris. And I think that really just tells the full story of the community as well.
Right. I had a question in my head there, but I was reading the comments and it's gone completely out of my head. Guys at home, let us know, one, what's in your glass? Have you got a bottle of Hearach, and have you tried it yet? Antia has just joined. She's late to the party, but she's here with her bottle of Hearach. Good evening, Antia. How are you? I hope it's an open bottle of Hearach you've got there. Oh, that was my light just flickering there. I will apologise now if I disappear.
It's usually me that disappears halfway through the chat.
Alec Briggs is asking, is it the equipment for bottling, presumably the gin line, which dictated the 8 batches release strategy? I think Dave Parkinson was asking about the 8 batches earlier on as well.
Believe it or not, and this will probably amaze quite a lot of people who've worked in whiskey, every single bottle of all 8 releases was bottled by hand. We could not get the change parts in time to work to be able to run the bottle down the bottling line. So every bottle has been filled by hand, labelled by hand, packed by hand, corked, everything. So there has been some quite intense labourship that has gone into that. Yes, we're working on getting change parts in to be able to not have that in the future. And I think that is probably what has been a point of difference between batches. I think from being at the distillery on launch weekend, I think people thought certain batches, some were peaty, some weren't. The real difference, and you're talking a very, very slight difference between batches, really are the marrying time of what there's going to be. So if you look at batch 1, batch 2, some of batch 3, you're probably starting off about 12 weeks of a marrying time of the bourbon, the Oloroso, and the Fino. And just because of the amount of time that it took to then bottle it in hand and have everything in, when you're going up to 7 and 8, you're probably looking at 20 weeks just with the amount of time that it took to get round to get everything done. So everything painstakingly has been done by hand, then put into the Z frames by hand, put into cases. So it has been quite labour intensive. But again, for me, for a first release, it gives you that real point of difference, that there's a real personal feel to it as well, which is quite good. So
I'm impressed I've tried to label bottles, and that's pretty straight. That's pretty impressive.
They must be doing it in their sleep after it as well. Like everything is on it and going through. But
that's bang on. If anybody's done a bottle of their own with me at Glengarry, they'll know that I am shit at putting labels.
I got one that was near the end of the line. Mine's not quite as straight.
Oh, yours, that's more like what I would do.
We've probably had a couple of Hearachs by that point before.
Probably, yeah.
But again, it adds a little bit to the quirkiness in the story that is there. Yes, we are looking at change parts to have it on there to be able to put it through, but it meant that we could just bottle everything, concentrate on it. It must have been an absolute nightmare to do it. But if you're looking at 8 batches of roughly 12,000 bottles in each, it is a very painstaking process to do it. But
that's a labour of love by the team to get it out, isn't it? It's a bit
correct, exactly. And again, it just shows that how, as a distillery, everybody just mucks in together and just gets on with it and just goes for it as well, which is good.
Yeah, that is nice. And
you were expecting me to say that, yeah, it ran through change parts and everything was through. I bet you were not expecting that answer, that they were all done by hand.
Just a group of people sticking labels on. My gosh, amazing. Well, it makes all of our special, doesn't it?
And even during that time, I think launch week, the Tuesday of launch week, we actually bottled our 1 millionth bottle of Isle of Harris gin as well. So everything all happened at the one time. Luckily, that came through and we could actually fill that properly in terms of change parts that came through. But it just was a really nice story that it kept the conversation going throughout that week. And it also highlighted, I think, and kept the gin in front of mind when we were speaking about it as well, that wasn't then being forgotten when we had the launch week for the whiskey.
I've seen a lot of people sharing the 2 bottles together and all the stories for Harris gin. They've gone on and bought the the gin and the whiskey together, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
There will be, looking at different things that are coming through next year, but there will be glassware will be produced for the Hearach at some point next year. So we're working on that. We're working on small wattle jugs as part of like a Cayley sharing serve that people can have as well. So that is very much in production, and they will be coming through. There was some nice Glencairns that were put out for launch weekend, but I think a good few of them sneaked away with people that they're then home. So there are some lucky people throughout the country that have a nice Hearach.
I'm not going to lie, I would have been the person that stole that. I've been invited, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah. Was that you hinted that you didn't get an invite, Kat?
Yeah, that was a bit thinly veiled. But I just admitted I was stolen their stuff.
I've got my water glass here for the. I mean, the thing with Harris, what they've got with the brand is just across the board, from the glassware to the boxes to the, and now thankfully the liquid inside as well, is top notch. It's
everything. I think they look at, they want to produce the best that they possibly can. Give it the. If you bought any of the gift sets, if you look at how well they're packed and the story and everything that's on them as well, everything they look to produce is of the highest quality. And I think we're delighted that the whiskey has continued on the reputation that the gin has as well, that people are enjoying it. And I think that's what we want. I mean, we want people to be opening their bottles. We want people to be enjoying it. We want people to be sharing it with friends as well. So hopefully that's the case, that if people have not opened their bottle yet, coming into the dark nights that we've got just now and sharing it with people and really enjoying it around and just sharing stories with everybody and sitting like we're doing just now, just having a chat, just opening up bottles. That's what I love about whiskey. It's probably different from any other category, that whiskey is one that people will open and then discuss and just really brings people together as well, which is brilliant.
I saw on the website that people can share their own tasting notes, which I think is quite nice because, you know, whiskey is subjected to everybody and, you know, what you might taste, somebody else might not. So it's a nice idea to talk about it and share what you think.
Definitely. And we deliberately didn't put tasting notes on the bottle because of that. We didn't want people to have preconceived ideas of this is what it's going to taste like. So people can go in blind, really open, and just prompt and think about their own tasting notes and their own tastes and their smells, and also take you back to reminisce about somewhere that a taste or a smell takes you back to as well, sitting on a beach somewhere, being at a bonfire, like family members, different things like that as well, which is good.
That's what I love about Cahoman. Hi, Antea. It reminds me of living on the West Coast. But this is the similar vibe. It's kind of like that sort of, I think when your locals had said on your website, reminded them of like the flowers that grow down towards the beach and things like that, kind of floral, peaty, kind of coastal smell. Yeah, it's nice. It's all subjective.
And whiskey's probably completely different from other drinks that you do probably reminisce a little bit more. Yes, maybe cognac or wine you would as well, but whiskey's one that you'll remember the first time you tried a specific brand, or you remember where you were, or you remember the occasion that you can instantly take back to as well, which is good.
Yeah. I sort of think Northern Spirit has that kind of ability to take you off somewhere. You know, we talk about gin. You know, the reason you could taste the sea in the gin or orange peel or lemons is because those ingredients are in there.
Mm-hmm.
But with whiskey, they're not physically in there. It's all that distillation, all that wood process. We've got a great tasting note from Antea. It's delish. Sometimes that's all you need, isn't it?
That'll do for me. That will definitely do for me, yeah.
Ed Friday's on YouTube. Good evening, Ed. He said he hopes you don't forget about the gin like another distillery did. I won't name them. If you're on YouTube, you can find out who it was. You've produced my and my wife's favourite gin, so there's no plans to.
There is absolutely no plans to forget about the gin. The new advertising, the new advertising, and the new everything that you'll see for us going forward is around two spirits, one purpose. The one purpose being Harris in the community, and really is the two spirits in the forefront of any advertising and any communications going forward. So you'll have the really bright, vivid blues of the gin bottle, and then the dark, kind of sultry greys and reds and golds of the Hearach on there as well. So even if we're at multiple shows. So we're at Whisky Live. So Ailey and Simon are at this weekend in Paris. So if anybody is lucky enough to be there, then you can get the chance to go and taste. But we will have both brands there. Any show we're at or any festival we're at going forward, both brands will be there. So it's very much the case of they will sit side by side. There's not one that is going to be favoured over the other. Mm-hmm. For me, they'll sit alongside each other and they're both equally as important. Yes, we were designed to be a whisky distillery, but the gin has allowed us to be able to produce the whisky that we've got and has brought people there. So for me, it allows us to take you to different places. The gin will be in certain bars, the whisky will be in other bars. Some people will have both. Some people have both in-house as well. But for me, it's really just about them sitting side by side and being right next to each other as well. I mean, Ailey sent over a picture on our WhatsApp group earlier about one of the distributors in Germany were selling them as 2 bottles next to each other in one package as well. So it really just highlights the fact that they're there. You can enjoy them together as well.
Is that something you would do as a distillery, like a sort of, I don't know, like if you go into the shop, you could even buy them together as like a package? Or
it's not something we've done yet, but I think it's something we will certainly look at. I think we're going to look at a different gift packs potentially the tail end of next year as well, giving them a refresh, looking at them. So I think we're always up for hearing feedback from people and looking at different ways that we can put the product out there. We have just finished a cocktail book actually with Etiquette in Edinburgh, who have a Isla Harris gin tea, and they're using the tea to then with the gin to then make cocktails as well. So we're looking at different things and different ways that people can enjoy our products as well. So there's very much going to be different things going forward as well.
That's cool.
Exciting stuff.
I mean, we've got like lip balm, soaps, loads of different things as well that are not directly involved with alcohol. But what we want to do is basically have it that people who can enjoy the products and buy into the products. We mentioned about lamps, and you mentioned about all the different things that people use the bottles for as well. So I think it's just really about just embracing the products and just having them out there. But there is no panic about the gin because it is fundamental to us going forward.
There would be a mass revolt if you stopped the gin. I think people ask for it week after week after week at the shop. It's just a firm favourite.
And the good news is it's now easier to get the gin as well. So the click and collect model has changed, so you can come to the likes of your shop and be able to pick it up and enjoy it that night as well without having to order a click and collect and then go and pick it up and be quite confusing. So again, that's a messaging that we're really going to be putting out with our PR company as well, as you can buy us in retailers, you can enjoy us, you can pick us up and take us home that night to enjoy as well.
Although I did like the idea of it coming directly from the island, like Katie Morag, some lady kind of rowing it over on a rowboat and Mike going to pick it up from the harbour, cycling down to the shop. Pretty sure that's how it worked, wasn't it?
That's definitely how it worked, yeah. Definitely. Bringing the bottle in the basket at the front of their bike and dropping it off. And then
yeah, that's exactly how we got it.
A daily cycle from Harris to dropping off on the way. We've got a couple of questions coming in from our Facebook followers and on YouTube. We'll combine them together. So Gordon, talking about batch 1, why was the 1916 bottles from batch 1 and not its own small batch? And then we'll follow that up with Whisky Mastery. If you've tried the different batches, which I assume you maybe have, what was it a favourite? Was a standout batch for you?
I'll address the first question first around the 1916, and I think they are the very first 1,916 bottles that were produced. The first that have come through, the first that have then gone into bottle, they are completely different packaging, different bottle type, different there. So there is a point of difference between that and batch 1 is the fact that they are different. They are completely different packaging, something a little bit different from the batch 1 that you get. So there is a point of difference from there, from the 1916 to batch 1. And I think the people who bought in and paid to be part of our 1916 collection enjoy multiple different benefits as well. So yes, it came in, it was a completely different box. It was a bright red box, which looked stunning with different labels. Each one has a specifically numbered, and your number actually relates to you. So the staves, we've put people's names on staves at the distillery as well. So when you come and see that, you can know that you're part of the 1916 collection, that you can come and see the staves and feel a real part of the distillery when you're there. Also, bonus is you get free tours for life as well. So if you're on the island, you can come in and have a few drams and enjoy when you're there as well. And I've completely forgot the second question that you had. Oh, the difference between different batches.
The batches, yeah.
For me, there's not a massive amount of difference. There's slight differences between them. I mean, Shona, who's our master blend, and likes batch 7, but for no particular reason. She just feels that they connect her to certain parts. I think she likes batch 7 because it's maybe been married that little bit longer. So you're probably looking up towards 20 weeks instead of 12 weeks. So
7 I've got.
There you go. You've got a personal favourite of Shona. But I mean, for me, I don't really taste a massive difference between them. It's designed in a way that, or it's not designed, it's bottled in a way that there shouldn't really be differences. But we all know from whiskey, and we all know from previously my background in independent bottlings, when you're looking with a smaller cask type that's then going into numbers, you're going to get slight variations in wood or what you've got going forward. So the idea is that the batches will be quite consistent. The flavour and the taste that you're getting from the batch that you're drinking now should continue and will continue through the future batches as well. But obviously there will be slight differences that people might be able to pick up as well, but there should be consistency.
Have little subtle differences though, because it gives it a more homemade, handmade kind of feel to it, as opposed to mass-produced.
Correct, but I mean, really, just to dispel any myths around one's not peated, one contains this, one contains that. It is very much concise and the same through different batches, with the main difference being marrying time, just purely by the time it took us to bottle everything by hand as well.
I'd imagine that's not unique to you guys. I think maybe you're just being more honest than most people about marrying. And
that's what we've tried to do as well. The batch system, where it caused a bit of a nightmare in terms of going into customers and we couldn't tell customers what batch they were going to get, and people have been hunting for batches, is something we're going to continue going forward. So, Kat, you spoke about before, you'll be able to look at it, from putting the code in at the top of the cork, where it's been, what warehouse it's been at. It will continue to be the batch process going forward as well. So that is something particularly for people that want to collect, or people that then want to enjoy and see. And also people who you look at, if your birthday's on a certain date, you might want to have that particular batch number for that date, or as a synonymous number for you as well. It continues to go up for that as well.
Awesome. I guess so. Hamish is asking, will you be at the Hampden Festival in November?
We won't. Unfortunately, it's just come that little bit late. I spoke to Mark. I've been at it past couple of years in my previous guys with my previous company. Unfortunately, we won't be this year. And I think it's purely just down to, we were nervous around what stock was left and what we had left, and didn't want to then create frustrations where people could potentially come and buy the product and then wouldn't be able to purchase it. So I think we're really going to ramp up and be at festivals from next year. Yes, we'll be at some small food markets and independent places between now and the end of the year, and you'll be able to taste us at tastings at certain shops. But going from the start of next year is when we're really going to ramp up being at festivals as well, and we know what we're going to be. It was very much with the first launch of, we didn't know what we didn't know. Did we envisage that online are going to sell 28,000 bottles in shy of 6 hours? No. Did we? Because so we couldn't really then commit to go to certain festivals or certain days, because we just didn't know what stock we would have and what were there. There's going to be, the batches next year is going to be a slight uppage in terms of volume, in terms of what there's going to be. So I think now that it is launched, we're very conscious that we want people to have the chance to be able to try it. I'm also very conscious that at £65, it is a bit of a risk to buy a product at £65 when you don't know what it tastes like. When you walk into a retailer, you know what you pay for a brand that you've consistently bought. Sometimes you maybe don't want to take the risk and buy a product that you don't really know what it tastes like. And we are conscious about that. yes, you can taste it when you're at the distillery, but not everybody's going to be at Harris. We have gone around. We even had booked in some tastings in certain retailers that we actually had to cancel because they sold out of stock so quickly that there was then no point doing the tasting because it was there. So we're conscious about that, and we're going to be at multiple. We're looking at booking in and going to be at multiple different shows going forward. So unfortunately, we're not at Hampden, which is from somebody who works behind the stands and at that, because it is run by people in the industry. It's probably one of the best ones to be at because you're very well looked after. They know what's there. There's industry legends that run it. So unfortunately, we're not there. I know it's going to be an amazing day, but we will be there next year. We're already booked in to be there next year, so we will be there next year.
Super.
That was a long-winded rambled answer there.
I mean, a yes or no would have been fine, but no.
we got there. A proper waffle that we went through.
What we like to do, Blair, on some of the Blethers, we've talked a lot of brand.
Yep.
I want to come off brand a little bit and just talk about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first kind of role in whiskey? What kind of got you into it as a professional in the trade?
I mean, my first ever whiskey sales job was I started with Diageo in 2008, and yes, with the abundance of whiskies Diageo had, you didn't really work with their full whiskey portfolio. So you worked with Johnny Walker, you worked with Bell's, but they had a separate team who would work on all the classic malts and all the distilleries. So I think my first introduction to whiskey was them. It's probably a product that I maybe shied away from a little, that I didn't know a massive amount of, thought I didn't like, and it was going through a WSET training where we actually married it with food that I realised, you know what, I actually quite like this. It's really easy to drink. It's something that I enjoy. I then was at Diageo for 9 years. I then moved on to Halewood. Was part of the team there when they launched Krabby's whiskey. So the first one when they launched the 28-year-old was involved in that, and the launch for there. Moved on to Morrison Scotch Whisky Distillers, where it was my first job solely concentrating on whiskey. So I was involved in the relaunch of Old Perth, the launch of McTalla, and then working on their independent bottling range, Carnmore. And it really just ignited the passion for whiskey that I had, and I think opened up different opportunities and different conversations that we're having as well, which has ultimately led on to the role that I've got just now as well. So I think for me, you both know working in whiskey, and I think you mentioned Antea that's on the call and different other Juliet that's on the call as well. Whiskey is one of those industries where everybody is friendly with each other. I've worked with different companies before that you'd be like, oh, I don't speak to them because they work for such and such brand. Whiskey's not like that. Everybody all meets up. We'll then share samples with each other. We'll catch up, whether it's shows that we mentioned, whether it's a Glasgow show, whether it's an international show. It really is a friendly industry. It's quite unique in terms of whiskey. Yes, everybody, as I've proved, you move around and you go around different companies as well, but there's never really any animosity. People are always interested in finding out about different brands. What have you got? What's out there as well? And it really is completely different from other different sectors as well.
We end up saying this every week, don't we? It's just like it's the nicest world to work in. But it's just, you know, it's true if everybody says the same thing week after week, that, you know, it's just...
You get into the industry, particularly the whiskey industry, and you just don't want to leave. You think, well, where can I go? How can I work from there? And open up, whether you then want to work international, whether you then want to get into the bottling side or the distilling side as well. There's so many different opportunities that you have as well.
Yeah. Juliet's put a comment on Facebook. Yeah, just a big family. And I know so many people who have left the industry, and when I meet them, they're like, "Do you know of any jobs? I want to get back in. I
want back in." Exactly.
Yeah. It gets under your skin, doesn't it?
I think so, and I think it always gives you that point of difference that you can speak about as well. I mean, vodka is what vodka is, but I mean, there's very little differences between any different vodkas, so that you can have the point of difference that we spoke about tonight and can have different tasting notes. You can with gin, you can look at the different botanicals that are in there of different tastes. Whiskey is very much the same, rum to a certain point, but there is some different categories that when you're behind a computer, you could be selling anything, to be honest, because you're not actually speaking about the liquid or what you've got, but with whiskey, you certainly are as well.
I think what gin has is that repetition. You know, if a gin's a limited edition, it's because they haven't made any more, but they could.
Yeah.
You know, you can make gin to a recipe and you can repeat that recipe damn near photocopy everything, whereas whiskey's just not that possible.
No, and I think it's the time it takes and the mystique that's then going to come around. And we've all been there where you've opened up a cask thinking this is going to be incredible, and it's then not taking any colour for the wood. It's nothing like what you want to be. So it presents you with a lot of different challenges as well, but it's very interesting in terms of how it's there, what people speak about. And I think just how it relates to different situations or different memories that you have as well, which is good. You're
always learning something new as well. Every day is a school day. Like,
definitely.
Yeah. Even if it's like folk in the chat telling me something that I've never didn't know before, you're always learning something else.
Well, I think that's the thing as well. Like, also, like, just learning about different brands, learning about different tastes, what can then affect things like where the cask is stored or it's there. Also, if the cask is leaked and there's been oxidation in there, like something a little bit different, or finishing whiskey off and something different as well. Drinking it with something, so having it maybe with a beer or a craft lager or something next to it as well. Just different drinking experiences of how you have.
Mm-hmm. Super. Yeah. We're going to ask a little bit, let's say, we're a wee bit off brand. I've got a couple of bottles that I took out. I've just poured myself the Torre Vague, Castret Thought Glean. And we've got the Arrival here, which came out, I think, the week before or the week after you guys from Holyrood.
Yeah.
A lot of new distilleries, a lot of new releases coming out very recently. Torre Vague's one I talk of very highly. And you guys have got a similar kind of flavor, I think. Your background, the kind of brand is completely different, but flavor-wise, very similar.
Flavor-wise, yeah, they're not, I suppose, only a short ferry ride between us. There's not a massive amount between us as well. Yeah.
When you see these guys coming out and doing well, Ardnamurchan, Lindors, and the confidence there is in these new distilleries, does that help you guys and give you the confidence to say, people are interested in this kind of whiskey, even though it doesn't have an age on it, it's quite young?
It works both ways. I think it gives the distilleries a confidence that there is an appetite and they can go and there gives them maybe a little bit more confidence to try something new in what they're distilling and build a distillery and look at launching something to put it out there. But it also gives a consumer confidence that, do you know what, these are new distilleries that can go head to head with the big guys who've been doing it for multiple years, and gives a real point of difference and opens up different flavor profiles or in different distilleries that they maybe wouldn't try previously. And I think it works both ways, and I think it helps all. And I think it's only going to benefit the whiskey industry as a whole that people can really find different brands and different expressions that they can enjoy. I mean, people will move around different times of the year. They'll maybe move into more sherry maturation as we get into the darker nights. They'll maybe look at more bourbon in springtime. Similar to when I was at Guinness in summertime, the Guinness sales would go down because people would then move on to lager and move on to cider. It can be the same with whiskey as well, that you'll just move on to different maturations, different styles. But I think with whiskey, we spoke about how it's inclusive and it is a friendly group. I think the more distilleries that are out there, the more variation that you've got, I think can only help the industry.
Yeah, and with lots of distilleries in planning, a couple in Campbelltown, another new one on Islay being announced with the Chivas.
Yep.
Guys, do you think it's sustainable to have so many more new distilleries on the go?
I think so. I don't see why not. I think whiskey is only going to grow. I think if you look at different markets, particularly if you look at the export market, I know for us, the UK is our most important market. It is our home market. It's where we have the majority of our volume. But our export markets are extremely important to us. It's where we see a lot of different growth. And I think the more distilleries that are there, the more, if you look at Kat, you'll know from the different visitors and different nationalities that are over that then visit the distillery, there's more countries that are opening up and people are discovering whiskey for the first time and they're wanting to drink it. And it's not like vodka or gin that you can turn it on quite quickly. There is a weight that's there, and I think the more distilleries that are there, people can then discover more things. And I think there's always going to be an appetite for unique crafted spirits that's made, and whiskey falls into that category. And I think it's just going to continue to grow from strength to strength.
Good. Yeah.
I mean,
we all hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think it allows people are always going to be brand loyal, but But if you saw from the launch of we come out, people are not scared to try something different in whiskey. I mean, if you're a wine drinker, you might only drink Sauvignon Blanc, or you might only drink Malbec, and you'll maybe move from different brands, but that is your style. But what has really been an eye-opener to me is since I started whiskey is when you first start, you think everybody always loves peat. The more when you're at these festivals and show, it's probably more people don't like peat, but they're looking at different, they're desperate to want to like peat. So how do they then train themselves to go in and like these different styles? And I think with the different regions that we have and the different whiskies that we have, I think it's only going to benefit the whiskey category as a whole and bring new people into whiskey that are going to be able to enjoy it and pass it on to different generations as well.
Yeah, I think what you've got at Harris is exactly that. It's a great stepping stone into peated whiskey.
Correct.
It's just that first kind of nose. It's still sweet. It's got a lot of that coastal notes as well, but the peat is there, and you know it's there, but it's not the be all and end all of the whiskey.
What I like about this and what I've said to people about the Hearach as well is you could have the Hearach and then move on to a Torabhaig, or you mentioned Ardnamurchan or a Kilchoman, and still be able to taste that as well. So it's not one that's then going to just overload your senses that you would need to stick to that for the rest of the night. You can then go and drink something else and still taste that as well.
We'll have to put the Michael Tor from Glenallachie in there as well, because Juliet's watching. We'll have to pop that in there as well.
I've not had the chance to try that yet. I definitely want
to try it. I haven't tried it yet either.
You really need to, guys.
The branding looks tremendous, actually, particularly the pack of 3 that they were putting out. I don't know whether influencer packs or whiskey packs that they had for the launch, but they look tremendous.
The one that's got the rye casks, that sounds like my sort of, I want to try that one. That's the green one. Is it the green box?
The colours on the bottle are tremendous as well, actually.
Yeah.
Looking at peat, we are between, everybody's interested in ppm, we're quite lightly peated between 12 and 15, but some people think that it tastes more than that. Some people think it tastes less than that as well. So it really just depends on people's flavour profiles as well.
I think as well, where do you get your peat from? Are you taking it from the island? Is it mainland?
From the island. If it's not from the island, it is from other Aberdeen islands or from the mainland as much. But we try to source everything as local as possible. So the barley that we're using just now is 100% Concerto barley, which is not, Concerto is not used by lots of different distilleries. It used to be. It's probably more of a distiller's barley. Previously, some people have stopped using it as well. So again, gives us something a little bit different. We looked at the ABV where 46% is not cask strength, but it's not your entry level as well. So it gives you that little bit of extra strength where it sits middle of the road as well, and it's not going to completely blow your socks off when you have something. I
think that 46 for a lightly peated whiskey, it just helps lift the peat a little bit without overpowering it with the alcohol. It's just that I know a lot of kind of craft gin makers, being one of them, that 42 to 46%, it helps lift the flavors of the spirit without overpowering it with the alcohol. Once you start going higher than that, you maybe start losing some of the more delicate flavors as substitute for. So I like lightly peated 46% tends to be a really nice kind of combination.
But we'll call it a dangerous dram, as it's got that quite high, it's got that relatively high ABV where you can enjoy it. It's very easy to drink, and once you've had a couple, you then go up to get something else, and you're like, wait a minute, you can feel that slightly when it comes through.
Do you think there'll be much scope for experimenting with things like barley, because you're very open about the fact you're using Concerto, or maybe do they grow barley in Harris? Would they be using local?
Not that I'm aware of that they grow some, but we are always open to looking at different things. We will always have our core product. We will look at limited editions. We will look at potentially age range as we're holding stock back. But we have a very young distilling team. I think majority of them, apart from Norman, are under 25.
Right.
And the people from the island, they've learned about it. They're interested in looking. So we've had discussions whether we then look at something different, whether we use different barley. We've looked at it for the gin as well. Do they come up with a distiller's edition that has a real point of difference as well? So we are always up for looking at different things, how we can how we can improve, looking at some things that will whet people's appetite for the future as well. What we don't want to do is become stale, where it's the same product over and over and over again. We're up for looking at different barleys. Like I mentioned before, we've got some rye casks. We've been looking at them. We've been looking at some unpeated, peated. There's lots of different things we're looking at. We're not one-dimensional, that this is the way it always needs to be. And we're up for looking at new things as well.
And it's so cool you've got this really young team. So I guess like the spirit's going to be kind of growing as they go through their kind of development in the whiskey world as well, which is
exactly. And again, they're all local, and it's a really nice story that we can talk about, that they enjoyed the distillery. And if you look at the different teams, people have been in different teams and moved through. So Peter, who looks after some of our export markets, he started and has done various different roles within the company and moved on to that. Shona, the same. Donnie, he started in the distilling side and then he's looking at managing and logistics that we have as well. So there's lots of different progression, and they want people to move through the company as well, which is really exciting.
Sounds like a fun place to come work.
It is. You know what? It really is a lovely place to work. It is super friendly. Everybody is out to help as well. And they talk, I mean, I mentioned about Hebridean hospitality. We had a ceilidh for the launch weekend, which I think most people from Tarbert were at that evening as well, which was just an incredible party and the perfect way really to kick off the launch as well.
I bloody love a ceilidh. Like, let's get more of those. I love a ceilidh.
But unbeknown to me, I didn't know till I started with Harris. I just assumed that a ceilidh was like a dance, everybody got together. But the purpose of why we then brought out the ceilidh bottle is a ceilidh can just be like going round. What we're doing just now can also be described as a ceilidh, because people are then meeting and sharing good times as well. So we mentioned about every day being a school day. There's another random fact for the night.
I've never done the Gay Gordons on a Blether yet, but there's still time.
Yeah, it could be interesting. It could be interesting. I definitely would be a few screens knocked over, I would imagine.
We'd all, you can just imagine the delay between us, in the turning and all that.
Everybody coming back, and then everybody out of breath when they sit back down to have a drink. As long as there's no injuries and no bruising, then we're okay.
I think we've got the start of an excellent idea.
Online
last one of the year.
Really? Yeah. Oh, but we'll have to do that for our last one of the year. We'll do a ceilidh. We'll get all the guests involved, and everyone at home can join in, and we'll just dance around the living room.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Sounds carnage. We'll have a few insurance claims coming in off the back of that one. I'm pretty sure.
Definitely. Next tasting you have in the shop, you'll need to get involved with that as well.
Yeah. I think in house in the shop that would be better. Yeah. So Blair, when you go to the pub, if you ever get time, I think somebody commented, David said, it doesn't imagine you've had a decent night's sleep since the release. What do you look for in a dram? What would be you're not allowed to pick Harris, because that would be cheating and too easy.
You're okay to pick Glengarry, though. That's fine. You can definitely say that.
Definitely pick Glengarry. I mean, it really just depends on what mood you're in, what kind of day you've had, where you're there. We either go for first fill bourbon or Oloroso maturation. And I think for me personally, some Pedro Jimenez maturations can be too sherry, can really mask the spirit that you can't come through. There are some that I've tried that are exceptional, but for me, I just find that it sometimes overpowers the spirit. So I would really go for some Oloroso or some first fill bourbon. If you're looking at distilleries, independent bottling wise, I love Mannochmore. I love Glenkeith, Glengarry that we mentioned as well, Ardnamurchan. I think there's just lots of different exciting distilleries out there that there's probably so many that you've not tried. I mean, you've got the Portaleith bottle behind you, something that I've not tried yet. I really want to try just to see how that is as well. But if you're looking at specific styles, if I was probably to pick my ideal style that you'd go for, it would probably be a first fill bourbon Speyside.
Sounds good. I think we should just go out drinking. That sounds ideal.
But again, I mean,
you've won yourself a date, Blair. Well done.
Sorted. We're on. But also like that, and Oloroso matured, where you're sitting watching TV. It's the weather like it is just now outside, and you've got it in your hand, and it's just getting warmer and warmer as you're sitting drinking it as well. The problem you then have is when you go to get another one and you've got to wait till it gets to that ideal temperature that you've enjoyed it at as well. But I think that's the good thing about whiskey. It's so interchangeable that whether you're in a bar, whether you're at home, you can enjoy it on all different occasions. And also, if it's in a hip flask and you have it in your top pocket of your kilt jacket or your suit jacket, and it's been there and it just gets to maybe that slightly warmer temperature, which for me brings out more flavors that you can enjoy, I think is the perfect time to drink it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about hip flask drams was it on a Blether? We had the Infinity hip flask we were talking about.
We did, but who was it that kept a Infinity hip
was it
flask?
Callum or the
I think it was a lady guest, a woman that was talking about it.
So we had this idea of an Infinity hip flask. So when they go to a wedding or a ceilidh or something, and they don't finish their hip flask, instead of pouring it out or whatever, they just add more drams to it. I mean, I thought, what a great idea.
Who doesn't finish their hip flask though? I mean, the serious question.
Well, yeah. I was just going to glide over that.
It's Mariella.
Is it Mariella?
I'm sure it's Mariella. Yeah.
From Aaron, yeah.
No, I like that idea though. I like the idea now that you see that people are creating Infinity bottles and Infinity casks, and there's something a little bit different as well, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an Infinity bottle upstairs in the bar, don't you, Mike?
We have three. We've got we do. So in the bar upstairs, when we get to the last kind of couple of nips of a bottle, we pour it into our Infinity. So we've got a full sherry one, a full peated one, and then a bit of everything.
Nice.
So it's good. We've got some of your old Perths in there as well from your previous.
You can crack that open with the Gay Gordons as well. You can just all over it, just a full-on New Year's Kaylee, Infinity bottle Kaylee.
Proper big Rami. This is getting better and better.
I know it's growing.
The malt barns at Glengarry would be ideal for that. He's got to watch the poles in the middle. I mean, that's a health and safety issue there.
Did you have a couple getting married there the other weekend? Or did
they did pre-wedding pictures. Yeah.
Pictures.
Yeah. So they were doing barley angels they weren't. But it was the same day we had Dave Broom over as well. So we're just trying to usher them in past this big kind of press visit. But it was good fun. Nice place for our wedding pictures.
Yeah,
it would be. Yeah, I wish I knew you did that. I don't know if Tony would be up for it. Although at the time she was working for you guys, so we probably could have swung a deal.
Yeah, I don't know if it's anything like that we've actually promoted. I think somebody just asked us. We're like, yeah, all right, yeah.
I bet Harris would be beautiful for some whiskey photos at the distillery.
It definitely would be there, and then up to the beaches roundabout as well, which would be phenomenal.
Mm.
Is it Harris has got Luskentyre? Is that?
Yeah, no, Luskentyre's in Harris. Yeah.
It's always voted like one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, isn't it? Like every year.
It definitely is, and I always thought that it needed, because every picture you see is around like a beautiful sunny day that you see it, the water is as blue as what it is. But being over for the launch, the weather wasn't. We were very lucky that the Saturday when we did officially launch was probably the only dry day of that week. So the whiskey gods were certainly looking down on us that day. But I mean, driving around the island, it is still as blue and at certain points, even when it's dark round about as well. So it really is quite incredible. There is actually a golf course. So the Harris golf course is a 9-hole golf course that actually sits right on the beach. So I've not had the chance to play that yet, but apparently it is. It just looks the most incredible golf course to play, something a little bit different. So if you happen to be on Harris, you like whiskey and you like golf, then Island Harris Golf Club is definitely a place to try.
They tend to go hand in hand, don't they? Whiskey and golf. Again, it's a hip flask kind of scenario, isn't it?
Definitely. You can either celebrate with a hip flask or commiserate and join your sorrows. It might improve your golf if you're not going.
Well, it tend to be the more the commiserate, the worse you get.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll need to visit Harris sometime. It looks amazing.
Definitely. As I said before, if you're up, let me know. We would love to have you at the distillery.
Yeah, I think Callum, I'm not sure if Callum's still on, but he was saying it's just an incredible place to go and is a 1916 member, delighted with the bottling and the other benefits that the club offers. So you've got a big fan there, and I know Callum, he's a big fan of Rassay and Glen Scotia as well. So to get into that kind of company, you're doing very well.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's what we wanted for the distillery, is the people to come and enjoy themselves when they're there as well. And I think really when you are on Harris, I think we're also quite unique as we're right next to the ferry port as well. So when the ferry is on during the summer and spring months, you come off and the first thing you're greeted with is a distillery. So it's natural that you then come in. But I think what's quite nice about the distillery is there's no expectation that you're then going to be doing a tour or you're going to buy something. That you can sit in front of the fire and have a chat, have a blether like we're doing just now, have a coffee, have a dram. And we want it to be more of a social space as well, which is quite nice. You can wander upstairs. Sometimes we have some sampling and some tasting on, that even though you're not doing a tour, you can still taste some gin, you can still taste some whiskey, which is quite nice as well. And you will generally meet some authentic Hearachs when you're there as well, who have real connections to the island, are born and brought up there, and they just love working for the distillery as well.
Right. It sounds a dream.
Anybody who's over, they definitely need to go for it. So maybe not on a day like this with the weather and the wind, if you're getting the boat.
No, I'm listening to the wind outside and it's fairly picking up in the last kind of 20 minutes. I can hear it.
I think it's like tonight, isn't it? It's meant to be the worst, and then
I think so.
He'll off by the afternoon tomorrow. Well, I'm sure we'll survive. We won't wake up in Land of Oz.
Just we can enjoy a couple of whiskies, have a good sleep, and then we'll wake up in the morning. Hopefully everything is all right and everybody's safe and sound as well.
We've just pinged up. We've got a weather warning, a flood warning in Inverurie. So.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, but we're quite high, so I'm safe. The shop's never, touch wood, the shop has never flooded.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
We'll be fine. Rick is saying, take a dram, Cat.
Oh, well, we have mentioned Glengarry quite a lot of times, so well spotted there. I can't keep up with how many times we say it. I mean, like, I'm a lightweight. It's a running joke that every time Glengarry's mentioned that we have to take a dram. Because somebody says it's mentioned too often. I don't know if it's mentioned too often. I don't think it's mentioned often enough, to be honest.
And that's why the game was started, was to stop you talking about it all the time.
It's not always me, I guarantee. And Blair has a connection to Glengarry indirectly through Morrison.
Indirectly as well, through Morrison Scotch Whisky Distillers as well.
Yeah.
So
it's inevitable.
Of the Morrison brothers connection, the distillery that they had as well. So
yeah. Oh yeah, the Morrison Bowmore.
Yeah,
that's where all the blue came from.
Stanley P. Morrison.
Yeah. All the blue paint at Glengarry's Morrison era.
You were just trying to say that so you can have another dram. That's all you were doing, just to get on.
And Taya's heading off to dinner, so cheers on Taya.
Cheers on Taya.
Yeah, see you later.
Take care. I love it. So David Muir has put a comment. Mike, I did a Gay Gordon's staggering home a few weeks ago. So I probably shouldn't tell the story, but I'm going to anyway. Sorry, David. I'll be ruining your bath now. You'll be sitting in the bath all we had a mutual friend, Gavin, who came up to our Whisky Academy back in March. Well, it was our first academy, so a year past March. And as with most whiskies groups, we stay friends for all the time. And Gavin invited me and Dave over to Glenallachie for a tasting with Billy. He managed to get a tasting with Billy Walker. So we went there. We had a great time, a few drams, and then off to see Cara McWilliam, who's another friend, and she's got her own little tasting room. So we did a few drams there. Back to the Highlander Inn and a few more drams. And then all of a sudden, Dave disappears. We have no idea where he's gone. But he's also got, so Gav bought a bottle of the Scallywag for the Highlander's own Scallywag whiskey. And this bottle had gone as well. Like Gav's like, he's pulled his hair out, what hair he had left. He's like, where's Dave gone and where's my fucking whiskey? So I'd gone to bed and I had about 6 missed calls from Gavin asking, where's Dave? He's got my whiskey. And David just disappeared off into the night. And apparently he thought he was in Aberlour because he was staying in Aberlour at a bed and breakfast, but he was in the Highlander in Craigellachie, so he's in a completely different town. And got picked up after a couple of falls, and picked up by a couple of ladies who felt sorry for him and took him home. Thankfully, the whiskey was intact.
Was that intact?
The bottle survived the experience, but
they took him to their home or to the hotel, though.
I assume back to the B&B. I don't know. I don't think we ever actually figured that one out, Dave. If you're still on, if you haven't been away, let us know if it was back to your bed and breakfast in Aberlour they took you, or did they take you to their home? But yeah, he was Gay Gordon staggering up the streets of Craigellachie. Completely, he was heading out towards Maggie Knocketer rather than Aberlour at the time.
Good job he was picked up. Exactly.
Yeah, I know. It's who knows what.
He had some whiskey to keep him warm, so he would have been all right.
He would have been all right. Yeah, and it was a fine night. There wasn't rain or anything. I don't think.
Just the midges that he needed to look out for.
Well,
so
there you go.
I mean, whiskey has its benefits, but that was certainly not one of them.
No, definitely not.
Great for us to listen. To hear this,
probably cringing as that story is getting called out.
No, he's all right. He's a thick-skinned lad. He'll be fine. But yeah, the other question we like to ask Blair, if you could, and obviously with your independent bottling days at Morrison's, you've had access to quite a few distillery liquids. If you could pick one, money no object, and you could buy one and release it as single malt, would you have one that you would?
That is a good question. I mean, for me, I have never tasted a bad Manachmore. I think you mentioned Aberlour and different things right about Speyside, but for me, every Manachmore I've had is one it's always been there. It's probably more, you see it in more independent bottlings than you do when you see it out in an actual expression. So I would probably like to have that. And there's obviously ones that are closed, like if you could get more Imperial and bring that back and be able to have that. But I think access to have out as a single malt and to let more people taste it would be first fill bourbon matured Manachmore.
You often see it. It's usually put in a sherry cask Manachmore. It seems to be more popular in a sherry cask. So it'd be fun to see it more in a bourbon cask.
Yeah.
Same with Dalhuin. It's always put into a sherry cask. But yeah, it'd be fun to see it then a bit more in the. Are you being handed a baby, Mike? Or do you know that you're still on silent?
Yeah, sorry, I put it. So Tony just popped into the room. Sorry, when you were ranting there, her sister is being moved, so we're going to put her up in the bed and breakfast at our pub. So Tony is just
because of the weather.
Because they're in Port Elmston, which is right in the middle of the flood warning plain. So, they're going to come out and stay in our bed and breakfast above the pub. So Tony just came in to say that she's heading off. Sorry, so I was listening, but I was on mute at the time.
You definitely need to get that sorted out as well. So no.
Yeah.
See, if you put on the spot, there's probably so many different distilleries that I've tried. I think, do you know what, that is wonderful. That is what I want. But Manachmore is one that always sticks to mind. I think for me, it's a liquid that I find just really, really easy to drink. And I think particularly if you do get the independent bottle rarity of a first fill bourbon, it is exceptional.
Yeah. I think when we did a tasting, it was a virtual tasting through Morrison, and they had a first fill bourbon Manachmore.
Yep.
That was the Loch Dew whiskey, wasn't it? That was ruined by port. There's
different distilleries. I'm trying to think back. I know from Morrison days, Carmore days, there has been quite a few Manachmores that we've put out. I think for me, there's a 2013 that sticks in my mind, first fill bourbon that I think.
I just remember having that conversation and loving Manachmore, and we talked about the reputation it got from that Loch Dew.
Yeah.
At least people think, oh, that's Manachmore, that's what it tastes like. And
it's funny actually, because that's just sprung to mind. I remember doing a tasting in the Jar in Troon.
Okay.
And I was asked the very same question that you've asked about favourites, and they were like, they talked about that at the Lochdu, and they were like, it's the worst whiskey they've ever tasted, and it's put a lot of people off Manic More. But I suppose that's quite a good thing, because if it's put people off, then there's more for us to be able to enjoy, which is good. But that does spring to mind as one that's like they had mentioned it and they'd overdone it. And I think, was it not like a real kind of black, deep brown colour as well? Black
whiskey, and it's become kind of notoriously bad that people want to buy it just to see how bad it is.
Correct.
Which is a great sales gimmick. I don't think it would last very long.
It's like the whole Ardnagurk thing.
Yeah, the Ardnagurk.
The Ardnagurk, yeah, definitely.
So Blair, I'm not sure if I think we must have spoken to this down at the dinner in Edinburgh. Callum's put a comment on, Mike and Blair, you seem to be getting on great. Wait until you find out which football teams.
You never bring football teams into nights out like this.
You shouldn't, should you? You shouldn't.
Definitely
not.
Definitely
I've got no reference point at all. I'll just sit and play my hair because I'm like, talk about rugby all you like, but football.
I will share a dram with anybody, no matter what football team.
That's a good answer.
Going back to that night in Edinburgh, that was a good night that we were at for the Distillers dinner as well, which was good. Yeah. And again, I mean, we talked about inclusivity and whiskey being basically like one big family in a community. I mean, that doesn't happen as far as I'm aware, there's not a Distillers Company of rum or different things as well. No. It just shows that, particularly with whiskey and the craftsmanship that then goes into it as well, there is a lot of historical societies that have dinners and do a lot of stuff for charities as well. I mean, the 1 of 1 auction that they did recently, and the money that they then raised for charities was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I know, that was like the Bowmore, like the money that they really raised for. There was like 500,000 that the stack went for.
Yeah,
like that.
It was incredible.
Crazy money.
I mean, I don't know what surprised me more that night about whether the money that they made on Bowmore or whether somebody actually trusted Daz to drive an Aston Martin. I'm still decided of what was the bravest thing that happened on that night as well.
Yeah. Everybody's got a shot of the Aston Martin except me. Just hashtag just saying, in case somebody's who cares?
I did have some good explaining to do after the Distillers dinner, because we ended up a few of us went back to a bar called Fingers, and it's a piano bar, hence the name. Yeah. But when that comes up on when that comes up in the company card when you bought around and you have predominantly female staff, people look at you and they're like, Mike, what kind of bar were you in?
What was going on? But no, Fingers is a proper Edinburgh institution, so it's like a piano bar, jazz bar. It's the sign of a good night if you definitely finish off in there as well. But yeah,
it's a sign of a good night if you finish off with Fingers. Yeah, that's a.
Luckily, our MD was in there as well, so when expenses went in, he was there and he knew it was there as well. So there was luckily no explanation that needed to be.
I could just imagine the look on Annette's face when you hand in that receipt in the morning.
Well, I couldn't find the receipt. That was the problem, and it just came up in the bank statement. Like, what? I found it a couple of weeks later, so we're all right.
You're going on Google to prove that it's a proper place,
but great night, and once again, I probably said this at the time. I hope I did. But thank you for the experience.
Not a problem at all.
Thank you. I couldn't reach the pedals on the Aston Martin. Yeah, okay. I couldn't reach the pedals on the Aston Martin. I can sit on a cushion and it'll be fine. Booster seat.
This is coming from a man who's blaming the bad steak for his bad memory of a night out.
He did end up back at the B&B though. That has been confirmed.
He did. Oh yeah.
So he got.
He's confirmed it. At least he got home safe, so he's all right. He's fine.
Hashtag.
Guys, so we're at an hour and a half, and that has flown by. I don't know about you, but quite happy. Blair, are you quite happy to stick around a wee bit longer?
Yeah, more than happy. Yeah, I can stick around.
This is where the Blether becomes a haver, and we get nitty-gritty. Guys, if you're at home, please feel free to ask any questions. It doesn't have to be Hearach. We'd love it to be Hearach related. That's what we're here to talk about. But anything else that you want to talk about, let us know what's in your glasses. I think Bunnahabhain, there's a couple of guys on YouTube talking about Bunnahabhain, the Moyne editions. We've had a wee chat about Michael Tor. Yeah, guys, feel free to pop on any thoughts on the chat so far or questions. Kat, were you on the Hearach? Were you drinking the Hearach there?
I was. I do have that with me. I could go into my extensive whiskey collection and choose something else. I don't have an extensive whiskey collection. That is the problem. Have you not got your new whiskey for your glass, Mike, tonight? The shops one.
It's here. I haven't poured it. I didn't want to. I just put it there for product placement.
Okay.
Yeah, so sold out in a week with our first octave.
Nice.
Blether Blue. We do a Folkhouse gin, and this. When did we launch it? 2 weeks ago? A week ago? I can't remember.
Last week.
Flown past. So we launched Folkhouse. It's a sherry cask octave, Oloroso octave that we did from Balmenic. So I might have one of them after I finished this wee arrival. So I'm on the arrival just now from Holyrood, which it's really good. It's a bit more sherry. There's a tiny punch of smoke in it, but it's more sherry than not. There's some PX in there. There's some Oloroso and some bourbon as well.
They're really exciting distillery, the Holyrood. I like everything they're doing over there. Yeah, they're one to watch. I think they're a bit fun.
We had a great tour. So I went down to take part in the Whisky Ambassador Advanced course with Joe. And part of the course, we went over to Edinburgh and did a Holyrood distillery. There's a couple of Germans on the tour, and we all know how attention to detail the Germans are when it comes, especially when it comes to whiskey. Sorry if I'm offending any Germans who are watching, but you are very, very precise when it comes to.
Are some of my favorite to have on tour, though. They get Scottish.
They love the detail.
Yeah,
they do.
And the tour guy, the guy who's taking us, he was one of the distillers. And at Holyrood, they kind of take it much like Hearach. He must have been about 25, quite young, and kind of being given this role of being a distiller. And Michael, who was the German guy, he was like, "What's your fermentation time?" And the kind of usual question: "What's your fermentation time? What yeast do you use? What's your cut points?" And I forget his name. I want to say Dylan, but I forget his name. And he's like, "You know what? We just kind of decide at the time what we're going to do. It depends on the distiller. It depends who's running the run at the time. Is like you might leave it for 50 hours to ferment, but you might leave it for 70 hours, and then we might decide we're going to do one for 100 hours." Excuse me. Because they're still at that stage where they're so experimental.
Yep.
Everything's getting done, so every person has their own kind of idea, and you can just see this guy's brain was just about to explode because he couldn't get, it was so inconsistent, and there was no order to it, which I think is really cool. And obviously they're keeping a record of every cask and how that was produced and all that, so that they can go back and learn from it. But just the fact that it was so sporadic, it was like, I don't know if you ever seen the film Short Circuit with the robot Johnny. He just starts to sit and self-destruct, coming out. But yeah, and I'm really impressed with the whiskey that they've put out for their first release.
By the way, I've just twigged when you were seeing all the questions coming through. You two will laugh at this. I was clicked on private chat, so I was like, "Where are you seeing all these questions come through?" As you've lost me for the past couple of minutes, I've just been going through some of the comments that are there. So. Apologies for any questions that we've missed. So.
Yeah, got to most of them, didn't we?
I think there was one that came through from Willis, the plan for the core range whiskey. Oh. I'm not sure if you mentioned that at the start. I think.
So for the core range will stay as the core range. I think there'll be some slight changes with the addition of some Woodford Reserve maturation in 2025. I think looking at production numbers, there'll be an increase on availability for next year. And we will look at some limited editions as well. So there'll be 100% Oloroso maturation next year, and potentially a different, really small limited edition as well, but that's still to be confirmed. So I would love to be able to give you more information on that, but I don't know that yet. So once I do, I will happily share it with you as well.
So would the packaging, like the box, kind of remain like the same for that, or do you think you would change, like, you know, because it's like very much focused on the people, but would you do like a sort of small batch special?
I think so. I think we're open to look at lots of different things. I think we're looking at gift packs just now. How can we make them a little bit better, that they're not quite as big as what they are, but still have the full contents that are there? Like I said as well, with the Z frames that we've got just now, we're looking at how can we reinforce separate parts of them? How can we then make it easier or helpful for the likes of yourselves that we help with the packaging when you then send it out, so people are getting it in the condition that we would want it to be as well. So we have a meeting next week where we're going to look at feedback for the launch. We also have a launch event in London next week. Even tonight we talk about different things that are happening. So Ryan he had a tasting for the gin in the Essence of Hearach shop in the Princess Square in Glasgow. Gemma had a tasting, I think she was heading up to Stornoway and was doing a tasting up there tonight. I'm on speaking to yourselves, and Ailey and Simon are launching with our German distributor tonight as well. So it's all go with different things. We are always looking to improve, and we'll probably be catching up as a team next week just to look at the launch, what worked well, what could we improve on, what could we get better for the future. So boxes and Z frames are something that is top priority for going forward for future batches as well. So we're looking at how do we then reinforce this part in the middle. This seems to be the one thing that really has been breaking. So we've looked at that. We've looked at the box at the back, like make sure the glue's stuck on properly when it's there. Even simple things like the leaflet that's inside is just a little bit too big, that doesn't allow the box to close properly. So again, we're going to make that smaller going forward as well. So you still get the level of information through on the box, but it's not causing an absolute nightmare to close it and have it as well. So
it's kind of trial and error. You're kind of like the only companies.
Exactly. And I think we are delighted with response to, the main thing, the main thing is the liquid, like people there that they enjoy it. Yes, the fact that people love the bottle is a massive bonus as well, and the packaging. But the good thing is we're not looking at the liquid that we then need to drastically improve that going forward. I think it's a lot easier to look at packaging and how you then improve that you're not looking at the core product or what you want people to enjoy at the end of the day, that there's not work.
That's the worst problem you have. It's not easily fixed anyway.
Looking at Rick's question, I've not tried it in a cocktail yet. I have tried it in a highball. I really enjoy a whiskey highball. I've tried it in a highball with a massive slice of orange, which was tremendous. Super easy to drink. So
sounds like a cocktail to me, Blair.
I suppose it is. You could go with it. I've not tried it. We are again looking at developments for next year. We worked with various different bartenders on cocktails for the gin. We will be doing the same, I would think, for whiskey as well. So we'll be looking at various bartenders to come up with some serves. But also, when they're in bars, we are more than happy for it to go on cocktail menus for people to look at it for something a little bit different as well. So again, we enjoy the fact that people want to put it in cocktails. People want to look at something different with it. And I think given the flavour and the notes that you get off it, I think it would lend itself to a cocktail quite well.
Yeah, it's good a way of getting into whiskey, isn't it? Trying it out with a cocktail, especially if it's got a bit of peat in it. It's fun to play around with.
So not the weather that we've got just now. When we had the nicer, slightly warmer weather recently with it, tall glass, lots of ice, nice meaty amount of Hearach in there and topped with some soda was perfect.
Sounds good. Yeah, I know. I think a peated whiskey is good on a stormy night, to be honest. It kind of warms twice.
Also, a random accompaniment for any peated whiskey is a bag of Maltesers as well. Somebody told me that years ago, and I was like, what? Because everybody goes for fancy chocolates and 80% cocoa and all the different things, but the maltiness in a Malteser with a peated whiskey is the perfect accompaniment.
I'm going to try that. My son got a box of celebrations for his birthday, so I'm going to go rake out all the... I mean, Malteser ones, they always go first because they're the best ones. I might have to go and see if there's any left. I'll be left with a bloody bag.
Well, with a peated whiskey is, taste sensation. Mike's thinking, have I got Maltesers in now?
I haven't had a bag of Maltesers in about 10 years because I'm gluten-free, I'm celiac, so I can't. Maltesers are on my no list. Yeah.
That sucks.
If anyone knows where I can get gluten-free Maltesers, then absolutely I will dive in there.
I can't believe that's not been a thing yet.
On the comment as well, Rick. So now that I can actually see the comments, he's a way to celebrate his 10th wedding anniversary. So,
congratulations, guys!
Brilliant. Right. Well, I'm glad you came and joined us for your morning, just to get you up and running. Have a great celebration, and hopefully we'll catch you again sometime soon. Also, say hey to Catherine for us as well.
Your wife's called Catherine. Like, she's a keeper. That is a good name. 10 years ago, you probably sussed that she's a keeper. So amazing. Congratulations.
Of course, you wouldn't have met her. She came over with Rick for the academy. They stayed. Felix's wife as well stayed at the academy, but they stayed at the accommodation and didn't come out and do the courses. So you would have met.
Well, I only met Rick briefly because he was poorly for some of the time. So I think, it was only.
He missed the Annick and Glendronach day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sad. Ed Friday says nothing goes with bounties. I mean, I've got to do the dad joke and say there's bound to be something.
You've been waiting. I think you two had set that up. You knew it was coming. You were getting a sneaky text inside to say, like, set me up for this.
Guys, if
he's basically rolled it along the 6-yard line for you just to tap that in. They just set you right up.
I will Lumo it and put it clean past it. If anyone knows of a whiskey that goes well with bounties, let Ed know.
Must be something rum finished. Maybe we go with a bounty. Maybe. Surely.
If you're just thinking coconut and rum, it's very narrow-minded of you. How about your hand fill at your own distillery?
I was actually on the point.
What a tee up there, Kat. Yeah.
It was on the tip of my tongue to say it, and I thought I'm going to be shot down if I prolong that.
You're just wanting to get her to take another drink. That's what's going on.
But it would go beautifully with a bounty. So, like if you've got a glut of bounties, head over and get a handful from Glengarry. Mm-hmm. That's what you need.
Any rum casks in the Harris warehouse, Blair? That you?
No. I need to get down to Hearach and get round and see everything that's here as well. So there's some private casks from a cask sale that we've done before that people have bought, and it will be bottled, I think, in coming years. And I'm not quite sure. I'll certainly ask the question. So I'm in London next week, and then the week after that, I am back up in Harris. So I will certainly ask some questions when I'm up and see what I can find out and see what I can source.
Is there a cask you would love to see Harris in one day, just from like the profile of the new make spirit? You think, actually, I wonder if that would go really well with such and such?
I don't know, actually. I mean, there's obviously, we have the Oloroso match. It'd been nice to have a first fill bourbon one. I mean, it seems as if that's all I've spoken about is first fill bourbon, but
that's okay. I'm okay with that. That's all I speak about.
With first fill bourbon, like a real creamy product, I think would be good. But something a little bit, even if we look at finishing and look at different ways of finishing and different things as well, whether it's rum cask. I was over in Portugal last week on holiday and drinking a nice bit of ruby port and tawny port, and I do really like a port finish as well. So I think that could be something that could potentially be interesting as well.
That's the fun thing of a new spirit, I guess. You don't know until you try.
I think so, and you just really don't know you tried it. It's also a virgin oak. I mean, looking at, I saw that Adrian from Whisky Mastery had mentioned about a Glenkeith PX that we had. In fact, another one I mentioned PX. We're talking about different brands that we had was there was the Carmore Ardmore PX. I think that was 2013 as well, which was tremendous. So that was you could really get the peat come through on the Ardmore with the sweetness of the PX as well, which was lovely. So I know I said earlier on I would prefer Oloroso to PX, but there is some PXs that are.
It's funny. I always thought I didn't like PX until we did a blind taste test at the shop for our. What was it for, Mike? It was for the shop exclusive, wasn't it? Yeah. And how many of us is there? Like 6 of us, and you had maybe like 8 samples or something, or did you have 6 samples?
6. We can't stick to 6. Yeah.
Yeah, and we all kind of did the blind taste test, and most of us chose what is our shop exclusive, which is Madeira finish. But my favorite was the Kalila in a PX cask, which I did not expect.
Because we had we sampled 9 at the warehouse. It was Murray McDavid, and then we picked 4 between Russell and I. Picked 4, and then you guys got the 4 casks to pick from. There was two Ardmores were in there. There was a port and bourbon Ardmore, the Colila, and the Arthrusk was the 4.
Yeah.
And I think Ardmore and Colila and Arthrusk came top equal, but we went with Arthrusk with the safety net of it being a space side and a bit more approachable rather than having that peat element. Because the one before that was an Ardmore, so we thought going from peat to peat, probably wasn't.
Keeps it through,
yeah. Whisky Mastery on YouTube is asking, is that Blair's politician answer of saying they have a portwood in the storage comes?
Unfortunately not. We don't. Well, not that I know of anyway, but I would certainly appreciate it if it was, but I don't think we do, unfortunately.
No, it'll be exciting to see what does come out over the coming years.
And I think as well, I mean, it's our first release. We are learning all the time. We're looking at it. We've been putting liquid down. And as a company, I think we're open to trying different things as well. I mean, the success of the gin, there's opportunities for us there to look at potentially distillers cut or different recipes for that, where there's different serves we can come up with, different cocktails. So we're learning constantly. We're always looking at new things as well, and I think it's very exciting for the future to see what we can do as well.
Definitely. And you're welcome on every single time that you have something new.
Perfect. No, definitely. I think I've really enjoyed coming on and just, I mean, Mike, you mentioned an hour and a half, like you see the clock up in the corner, but it just felt as if we're just generally having a chat in a bar, going through things as well, which is
I think that's what we love, me and Kat love, and hopefully the guys at home love about what we do. As the Blether, we try not to answer the kind of the scripted answers. We kind of about halfway through, I wanted to distinctly move away from brand and talk about other things. And we want to be more relaxed. We want to talk about things that are
definitely. And I think,
and if you want
to, that's what everybody then wants to talk about as well. Yes, they've come on because they potentially want to learn a little bit more about us as a distillery, but they're on to then have a social thing that they can then discuss, and we can talk about different things. And I think the chat option, once I eventually found it, was quite a good option that is there that people can then discuss and prompt different conversations as well, which is good.
Awesome.
It's nice to learn about you as well, because you're obviously doing the work behind talking about the brands. So it's nice people know about your background and what you do.
And then people can ask different questions about the distillery or what you've done beforehand, which is
Just
also, I mean, question-wise, if people have not asked a question and they maybe want to know something or don't want to do it on the forum, if they want to contact Kat or Mike just with any questions, and they can forward it on to me as well, and I'll get you the answer. If I know the answer, I will get you the answer. If I don't, I will tell you that I don't know it as well. So, but I mean, any questions that they've got, just come through and ask
Yeah,
away.
Yeah.
definitely.
But just before we do close, Ed has come up with one wee question. Have I mentioned that I love your gin? He would love to see more variations.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that might happen? Because you do there is a kind of limited edition gin that comes out, isn't there?
Well, it's a limited edition bottle. It's the same gin in the Cayley bottle.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So with its specific pottery bottle that's there for something a little bit different. 35 cl. It's called the Cayley bottle. Going back to what we said earlier on about sharing it with friends, I think if you took a 70 cl bottle, not that you don't have to take a 70 cl bottle, but they wanted a slightly smaller serve that you could take round.
That you could sneak into parties.
Exactly. You're all over it as well. But Ed, I mean, we're open to looking at different suggestions. So be interesting to know what variations potentially you would like to see. We have looked at not really looked at, but we've had initial conversations of could we do limited editions? Could we do different coloured labels, different coloured bottles? But nothing's been decided. It's more just looking at different ideas that is what's there as well. So
Brilliant.
I guess it's difficult when you've got a very specific botanicals and flavour to.
Yeah, there is, and I think I mentioned about the young distillers. I think they were looking at getting them maybe to come up with a recipe of something a little bit different and have like a limited edition. I think it would be quite nice to have a limit. If we were then going to have a limited edition whiskey every year, then why could we not potentially do a limited edition gin each year as well? So I think there's lots of different options. I think it's probably easier with gin to add some different botanicals and add some different flavors, but still keep the core identity as well, which would be good.
Yeah, it's cool.
Awesome. Callum is away to pour another Hearach batch one, if they've any left in the bottle.
Well, it's good that you're drinking it. Everybody's drinking it tonight, which is good.
I like that.
I mean, it's nice that people have them for their collections, but it's nice that they're not collecting dust, that people are opening them and enjoying them as well, which is good.
And I guess there's that bonus of big. It was a reasonably big release, wasn't it? There was a lot of bottles went out. Did you say 18,000 bottles?
So there was roughly 12,000 bottles for each of a whole.
Each batch.
Yeah, batch one was a little bit less in terms of what was there, but you're roughly around about 12,000. That's worldwide, so that's just not UK. That's worldwide allocation of everything that was there as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. There was that there is a big selection. Yes, it went quite quickly of the 28,000 bottles that were sold online that morning, but there was stock that people could get and people could enjoy as well, which was quite good.
Yeah, so definitely one for drinking.
I think that's important that people do.
And I think
Blair, it's been an absolute pleasure.
No bother at all.
Sorry, I'm in a bit of a lag.
Delay.
We've
got a delay.
Yeah.
He's losing the power.
Blair, you say what? Has anyone ever told you look a little bit like John Higgins?
You've definitely had far too much whiskey. There you go.
No, just when you froze there on my screen, you had a bit of John Higgins.
Definitely. I wish I could play snooker as good as him. Would be all right. But no, I think going by, we will always be upfront and tell people about numbers that are going to be in batches and what we've got. I think that's something that will continue going forward as well.
Yeah, no, it's refreshing to see. It's good. Have you caught up with this, Mike? Are you on? Or is it like talking about getting the scores from Europe? You're back.
I don't know whether it was a lag confused look on his face or whether it was a live one.
It's permanent. This case is permanent. Blair, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me your time tonight. And thank you to everyone at home for sticking around, for asking questions, and joining us on the Blether. We always appreciate it. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't. Well, we probably would do it. It'd just be the three of us, and it might not last quite so long. No questions. So
just apologise for last week as well. Sorry, guys, that we had a last minute cancellation, but our guest unfortunately had a family bereavement, so it was very, very last minute. And so thank you for coming back and sticking with us. So yeah, sorry about that.
Who's on next week, Kat?
We have got Chris from Berry Brothers. which yeah, that'll be good fun because I think
It's going to
we
be.
might
Is it
potentially
in-house?
we're doing in-house. So I'm coming to your house, so get the drams out, Mike, and yeah, we'll have a bit of fun talking about all things Berry Brothers, and maybe, I don't know, maybe hear about the new Pioneers release, which came out recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, that looks quite incredible, the Pioneers release, actually.
Yeah. So yeah,
Awesome.
we'll, it'll get messy.
Very much looking forward to that. We will have to have a camera person on hand to cut us off. If last time I did it in-house tasting was with Andrew from Little Brown Dog. It was in the shop, and we ended up going behind the bar and cracking open some Springbank to make cocktails with his Calvados, and yeah, it got quite messy. And thankfully, my wife was there to drive Andrew home. Was her role, but she also had to stop the broadcast and calm us down and get us off the scene a little bit. So that yeah, that's going to be a fun chat. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, Chris is great. She's got some great stories.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me to come on.
Thank you.
Again, in the future, even just to come on if there's not really different releases or when limited editions come out, more than happy to come on and just have a further chat and give an update on that as well. But also, everybody stay safe for the storms and everything as well. And make sure
look after yourselves, guys. And yeah, you're welcome anytime. You've got my contact details, Blair. So yeah, open invitation.
It'd be great to get you back in a year's time and just see how that first year of whiskey is.
No, definitely.
So, guys at home, if you're in Scotland, please stay safe. Don't travel if you don't have to. Lots of wind, lots of trees coming down, we're hearing. So, just stay inside, pour a whiskey. And the chances are you won't have to go to work tomorrow. So,
bonus. Always a bonus. You can
always
stay on the couch for the hangover. You'll be sorry.
Good night, guys. And
take care. Bye.